Vincent van Gogh was born in March 1853 in Netherlands. He was Dutch post-impressionist painter who, though remaining undiscovered and unappreciated in his short lifetime, is now considered to be one of the most famous and influential artist figures in the history of the Western art. Perhaps the saddest figures in art history, Vincent van Gogh took his own life at the age of 37, following many years of poverty and mental health problems. But there are still many hidden secrets behind his work. We are going to present to you the top 10 mysteries about Van Gogh. His picture worth $10. He made over 900 paintings, but during his life he sold only one. After Van Gogh died, the innkeeper of where he stayed sold his two paintings for $10 in 1905 because he thought they were useless due to deterioration. The most money ever spent for a Van Gogh painting was $82.5 million at an auction for portrait of Dr. Gogh. Homeless life. It's highly unusual for an artist to paint an empty room, so the fact that Van Gogh did 3 of his bedroom at airless is seen as an expression of his need for somewhere he could call a home, especially as he had lived in 37 places in his 37 years. Losing color. Van Gogh's sunflowers are fading to an olive-brown color due to the painter's use of light-sensitive yellow paint. Scientists from the Van Gogh Museum used a microscopic X-ray imaging to examine the canvas in a process described as chemical mapping. Van Gogh used 2 different types of chrome yellow paint, one of which is more liable to degrade under light. More than half of painting contains the more sensitive yellow paint, and eventually the sunflowers will lose some of its yellow vibrancy. The museum will now review how to display the painting in order to preserve it. Even though the walls in 1888 painting look cornflower blue today, letters written by Van Gogh to his brother Theo describe the colors very differently, saying he had painted the walls pale violet. He cut his ear off. It was night before Christmas Eve in 1888 when Vincent van Gogh took the razor he kept on his nightstand in his famous bedroom in Airless and cut off his left earlobe. Why? Nobody knows. Maybe because he was crazy man? Or is there something more mysterious? After the incident, Van Gogh walked into the bordel and gave ear as a gift to a young woman named Gabrielle Berladier, who was allegedly prostitute and his love. Sad lover. Vincent van Gogh's love life was a really sad story. His choice of lover was unconventional. He often fell in love with women that were considered unsuitable. He was in love with women much older than him, prostitutes, even with his cousin. Also, there is speculation that he was in a turbulent relationship with famous French painter Paul Gauguin while they were living together in iconic Yellow House in France. Selfie pioneer. Although the selfie is a recent term, some argue that Van Gogh was the king of post-impressionist selfies. Many of his masterpieces were self-portraits, having painted over 40 of them between 1886 and 1889. When he began painting, he used objects, landscapes, and his own reflection to paint because he was too poor to pay for a model. There were 2 Van Gogh. Vincent had an older brother who died at birth. His name was also Vincent van Gogh. He would have seen his brother's tombstone with his name on it. His most famous work was done in ASYLUM. Starry Night. Arguably, his most famous work was painted in ASYLUM in France. He voluntarily admitted himself there to recover from his 1888 nervous breakdown, which resulted in the ear-cutting incident. Luckily for Van Gogh, while he was in hospital, he could continue creating his art. He would spend all days looking through the barred windows at the scenery below. Although Starry Night is recognized as a masterpiece, Van Gogh was never happy with this piece. Van Gogh was supposed to be a pastor. Van Gogh was supposed to follow in his father's footsteps and become a pastor. Would the world have been robbed of his art if he had stuck with this career path? Vincent van Gogh was murdered. The death of Vincent van Gogh may or may not have been a suicide. Van Gogh died in 1890 under mysterious circumstances. He was thought to have committed suicide by shooting himself, but gun was never found at the scene. Recent theories suggested that artist had been shot, possibly accidentally, by a couple of boys and that he had decided to protect them by accepting the blame. He died 2 days later and his last words was, "The sadness will last forever."